On the evening of June 19th, 2020, in the wake of the George Floyd protests, a statue of the highly revered Freemason Albert Pike was toppled, among others, by these protesters because of his racist past. And just 1 week later, Donald Trump personally requested that that statue in particular, amongst all of them, be restored and resurrected. And now, 5 years later, that is exactly what is taking place. But who is Albert Pike, and why would Donald Trump want that statue, out of all of the other ones that were torn down, resurrected and restored? Well, when I visited the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry in Washington, D.C. in 2013, I was shown just how revered Albert Pike is, and that his body is actually entombed there.
Mr. Pike is buried 6 feet behind here. We had to ask the U.S. Congress if we could move his body across state lines, so it took an act of Congress to bring Mr. Pike here.
So let's get it from the horse's mouth. Albert Pike himself, who wrote the book Morals and Dogma. For context, let's first read from Pike about how Freemasons in the lower levels are intentionally misled. The blue degrees are but the outer core or portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine he understands them. Their true explanation is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry. So lower level Masons are intentionally misled, and it is only the higher initiates who receive the truth of Freemasonry. It goes on to reveal the principal philosophy of Freemasonry. Masonry is a search after the light, and that search, as you see, leads us directly back to the Kabbalah. So he clearly states that Masonry is a search after the light. Sounds good, right? They teach that it's all about turning your inner coal into a diamond and bringing out your inner light. But who is that light? The book goes on to explain that that light is God, and that's what the lower initiates are taught. But it's not until you get to the highest level that you actually get to understand who that God really is. And here it is in Morals and Dogma, the book written by Albert Pike, the man who Donald Trump wants his statue resurrected, where he says, Lucifer the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness, Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. And remember, this is not me saying this. This is coming directly from the horse's mouth, Albert Pike. The Confederate general who Trump wants his statue resurrected is telling his fellow Freemasons that Masonry is a search after the light, and the light bearer is Lucifer. Of course, I covered this 5 years ago when it originally happened, so I'll cut now to that video for further context. And I'll follow that up with my video from inside the Grand Lodge, which I filmed in Washington, D.C. over 12 years ago now, because there's a good chance that new subscribers have not seen that video. And speaking of that, please subscribe to this channel if you're not already, and if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this information, please check out my Give, Send, Go campaign or pressfortruth.ca/donate. You can find links for those in the description below. So without further ado, here's my video explaining why Donald Trump wants that statue resurrected, and I'll follow that up with my video titled Enter the House of the Temple. This is video of Confederate General Albert Pike's statue being torn down in Washington, D.C. on the evening of the Juneteenth celebrations. Now, this is where a group of protesters, mainly rioters who have intermingled their way into the protest, toppled the statue, spray painted Albert Pike's face, and as you can see here, lit the statue on fire. Now, let me start this off by letting you know this is not something that I advocate or am in favor of. The toppling of all these statues, I think, is absolutely wrong. There are a lot of bad things about what some of these men did in history. There's good things that happen in history, and there's bad things that happen in history. And when you remove the memory, the history of the bad things that happen, you leave a void there. And that void is eventually going to be filled with those very same bad things happening again. As they say, those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. So I think that things like this are despicable. We can't be just erasing the memory, especially of the bad things that happened in the past. So I think it's quite interesting that today Donald Trump chooses to pick this particular statue to stand up and fight for, to have it resurrected. It says here, Trump asks for toppled DC Confederate statue to be put back up, a statue of Albert Pike, who was a Confederate general and leader of the Freemasons, was torn down and set on fire on the night of Juneteenth. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into looking at who this man Albert Pike was, what he believed, and we're going to get that information by going directly to the source. This is his book, Morals and Dogma, which many would consider to be the Bible of Freemasonry. I own a copy. I've read the entire thing. I don't recommend it. It's not an easy read. It's a rather difficult read, but nonetheless, I have read this, and I've gained a great deal of understanding about who this man was, what his vision for Freemasonry and the future was. And I think it'll give you a lot of insight and make you wonder why President Donald Trump chose this particular man to stand up for, to have his statue resurrected over all the others. So we're going to cover that and much more in this video, guys. But just before we do, I'd ask that you check us out here on pressfortruth.ca/donate. If you want to contribute to my efforts to bring you this type of information, you can do a one-time donation with PayPal by clicking on the PayPal link here. You can click on this Bitcoin banner to contribute Bitcoin. You can click on this Patreon banner to become a patron, or you can use the Patreon alternative here and sign up for a monthly reoccurring amount. Any amount is greatly appreciated. So if you are interested in getting involved and contributing to my efforts, please check the links in the description below to find out how you can do that. All right. So as I said, the statue of Albert Pike has been largely controversial for as long as it's been put up, essentially. It's one of the only Confederate general statues that is out in the public sphere, in the open. And as I said, this is the one that Donald Trump chose to have resurrected. As it says here, President Donald Trump personally requested that a statue of a Confederate general be put back up less than a week after cheering protesters toppled it and set it on fire in Washington, D.C. Remember, he personally requested this. Trump called Interior Secretary David Bernhardt and asked that the Park Services restore a statue of Brigadier General Albert Pike, two sources told NBC News. The White House did not provide comment, NBC News reported, but an Interior Department spokesman reiterated Bernhardt's call for law and order. The secretary has made his position quite clear when it comes to lawlessness, violence against police, and destruction of public property, the spokesperson said. The fight over statues and public memorials in the Capitol reached a boiling point this week, putting the White House, city officials, and protesters at odds with each other. Protesters surrounded D.C.'s only outdoor statue of a Confederate on Friday, the night of Juneteenth. They wrapped ropes around the statue and pulled until it fell. Then the statue was set on fire. News 4 cameras captured the scene on live TV. D.C. police officers were standing nearby as protesters took down the statue, which is on the federal land and under the jurisdiction of the National Park Services of the U.S. Park Police. The Pike statue, dedicated in 1901, has been a source of controversy over the years. The former Confederate general was also a longtime influential leader of the Freemasons who revere Pike. It was built at the request of Masons who successfully lobbied Congress to grant them land for the statue as long as Pike would be depicted in civilian, not military clothing. So this man is clearly highly revered. Here is the cover of the book. In Latin, it has the inscription Ordo ab Chao, which means order out of chaos. That is essentially their modus operandi. And you can see here on the first page, it says, Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, prepared for the Supreme Council of the 33rd Degree for the Southern Jurisdiction of the United States and published by its authority. It says here, entered according to the Act of Congress in the year 1871 by Albert Pike in the office of the Librarian of Congress at Washington. And I've read this entire book, as I said, and when I was done, I had a pretty good understanding of the philosophies of Freemasonry, how they instruct their initiates to understand these philosophies through indoctrination and ritual. And I've managed to discover something incredibly important that is laid out in this book that I need to show you today, guys. So for starters, here we have an explanation from Pike about how Freemasons are intentionally misled. It says here, the blue degrees are but the outer core or the portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine he understands them. Their true explanation is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry. So here we see Pike is obviously stating that lower level Masons are intentionally misled, and of course this book is only meant for those highest 33rd degree Masons to receive, where these truths are revealed to them. Now in this book, he goes on to explain what some of these truths are, and let's just get down to the philosophies of Freemasonry in what Albert Pike claims it should be all about. It says here, Masonry is a search after the light, period. That search leads us directly back, as you see, to the Kabbalah. In that ancient and little understood medley of absurdity and philosophy, the initiate will find the source of many doctrines, and many in time come to understand the Hermetic philosophers, the alchemists, all the anti-papal thinkers of the Middle Ages, and Emanuel Swedenborg. So here in plain English it says, Masonry is a search after the light. Now, that sounds fine and dandy. You know, Masonry often says it's all about turning that inner coal into a diamond, bringing out the inner light. But who is the light? Well, the book goes on to say it is essentially God, and that's what Masons are instructed all throughout the lower levels. But it's not until you get to the highest level that you understand which God they are actually talking about. And here it is from Morals and Dogma, the Bible of Freemasonry, written by Albert Pike, the man depicted in that statue who Trump wants resurrected, says right here on page 321, Lucifer, the light bearer. Strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. There it is, guys. This is not me saying this, okay? This is coming directly from the horse's mouth. Albert Pike, the Confederate general who Trump wants his statue resurrected, is telling his fellow Freemasons, the higher initiates, that Masonry is a search for the light, and the light bearer is Lucifer, ladies and gentlemen. You see, because they believe that God is the bad guy and Lucifer is the good guy. You know, that the God of the Bible didn't want mankind to have the knowledge of good and evil, and, you know, it was the serpent who liberated mankind and freed them from the oppressive nature of God by explaining to them that they can be like him, be like God, by taking a bite of the apple. This is what they believe, guys. And this is the man that Donald Trump wants to have a statue of resurrected. Over all the other statues coming down, this one in particular is the one that he personally wants resurrected. You got to ask yourself, why? Why would a man like Donald Trump want to resurrect a statue of a man who thinks that Lucifer is the light bearer and Freemasonry should be moving towards that particular light? Again, not my words. I'm reading it directly from the horse's mouth. The man who wrote the Bible on Freemasonry, the man who Pike wants his statue put back up. He's highly revered in Washington, D.C. In fact, the statue of Pike is not that far from the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry, the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Grand Lodge of Freemasonry, which is located in Washington, D.C., I believe just 13 blocks from the White House, and not far from the statue of Pike, is there. In fact, I went there and did a huge expose of this. Here we can see in this video titled Enter the House of the Temple, and in it I was granted access to this Masonic lodge. I went around and got all the footage of the inside of this 33rd degree Masonic lodge. Here's the altars. Here's where they do their, rituals. I have it all, guys. They even have a bust of Albert Pike in there. Here it is right here. Albert Pike, the bust of Albert Pike is in there. And not only the bust of Pike, but the body of Albert Pike is actually buried here. Underneath this particular building, the body of Pike is there to this day. So again, obviously these guys are highly, highly revering Albert Pike. Now, this video I put out quite a while ago, back in 2013, and following the release of my video inside the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry in Washington, D.C., exposing it for what it is, they no longer allowed anybody to film inside of there after I released that video. So I'm going to include a link to that video called Enter the House of the Temple at the end of this video. Make sure you watch it. And I'm going to continue to cover this issue because it's not only happening in America, it is actually happening in Canada as well. In fact, recently, my good friend Lee Stewart took part in the cleanup efforts of the Sir John A. Macdonald statue that was defaced here in Canada. Now, she's not in support of his past. She understands that there are some bad things when it comes to his past, but she also understands that it's just wrong to erase the memory of the bad things that happened in the past, because we will eventually be doomed to repeat those things if we just try to erase it from memory altogether. So just something I wanted to bring to your attention today, guys. Donald Trump is advocating for the Albert Pike statue to be resurrected over all the others. The man who is highly revered by Freemasons as a leader of Freemasonry, who taught that Masonry is a search for the light and Lucifer is the light bearer. Just let that sink in. Wanted to bring that to your attention today, guys. Please click the thumbs up on this video if you appreciate the information I'm bringing to the table here. And please share this video as well with your friends and family, and let them know that this current erasing of history is really Orwellian memory holing, and it's wrong. I disagree with it, and it needs to stop. But kind of funny that Trump would personally lobby for the Albert Pike statue to be erected out of all the others. Anyway, something I thought was pretty interesting and I should bring to your attention today, including my understanding of who Pike was, because I've read this. Again, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not an easy book to read, but I hope you were able to gain a little bit of insight into who that man actually was, especially considering it looks to be Trump's boy. Quite interesting. Anyways, just thought I'd bring that to your attention, guys. Once again, please click the thumbs up button, share this video if you found the information to be useful, and stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth.
Yes, please.
Okay. Are any of you Masons?
No.
Tour takes about an hour and it's $8 a person.
So here we are in the Grand Lodge of Scottish Rite of Freemasonry here in Washington, D.C. We are inside the building right now. Going to take a little bit of a tour, check out some of the scenery in here.
This is Albert Pike. He was our Grand Commander from 1859 till 1891 when he died in office. The reason why he's so significant is because he rewrote the rituals of Masonry and he rewrote the code book, Morals and Dogma. We have his body downstairs.
was there another like kind of Grand Commander before Albert Pike?
Yeah, there were several Grand Commanders before him, but he's the most prominent. He died at 82 years old, and so we asked every Grand Commander to step down when they're 81.
It's amazing. Check this out. I was rather blown away by the really the occult significance of the architecture inside the building. We were shown one of the main ritual rooms where they conduct their rituals, where only members of the 33rd degree are allowed in there. And the tour guide himself didn't seem to know a whole lot about the actual symbols and the meaning behind some of the symbolism.
So we call this room our temple room. It's not actually designed to look like a Christian temple. You'll notice the dome above us. It weighs 330 tons, and there's only steel found at the base of it. The reason why there's a hole or an oculus is because Masons believe anything that is perfect must be created by God. There are 33 chairs in this room. There are 33 degrees in Scottish Rite Masonry, 33 states in the southern jurisdiction, so that's why you'll see the number 33. All the wood in this room is from Russia. It's Russian walnut. The altar in the middle of the room is black marble quarried from Lake Champlain in New York. And the Hebrew writing in the middle says, "God said, let there be light," and there was light.
So there's 3 with 1 missing, it looks like. Is this the
I don't know exactly.
north, south, west, and the east is missing, or?
No, that would be the east.
That would be the east?
Because that's north.
Right.
Right. I don't know why that is missing, actually.
I asked him why there were only 3 lights at the altar, and he said he wasn't too sure why, but there are 3 because 1 represents the east, 1 represents the west, 1 represents the south, but in Masonry, the north is the place of darkness. And of course, according to the Bible tells us that the north is where God resides. Masonic Holy Bible.
When was this built, the building?
1911, it was started and it was finished in 1915. This was the architect's first major building. He went on to do the National Archives, National Gallery of Art, and the Jefferson Memorial. The snakes represent chaos, and the further up you go in the windows, the more light they let in, symbolizing enlightenment. So it's supposed to mean when you join Masonry, you join at a time of chaos in your life, and the further up you go in degrees, the more enlightened you become.
So, in the beginning, you just have to be open to the concept of there being a God. But as you work your way up the ranks and you gain enlightenment, he showed us windows in there that get brighter and brighter as you go up. And I found that very interesting. The windows were also surrounded by serpents. I asked him, what is the symbolism of the serpent? He said that's all about order out of chaos. The serpents represent chaos. And that is the motto of Freemasonry, really, is order out of chaos. This is precisely how they can gain their control.
The pillars are 30 tons of Windsor granite, quarried from Indiana, and the velvet is 400 pounds of Italian velvet. This chair we have right here is called the Tyler's chair. The man who sat here held a sword ceremoniously. It was his job to guard this room during council sessions to make sure people didn't listen in. Of course, we have the sword downstairs, and it's not sharp. I don't think he had to hit anyone with it, but you never know. And know thyself is a quote from Pythagoras. It's a quote that Masons take to heart. So this room's called our executive chamber. You'll notice the Tyler sword right here. This is the sword the man held that I was telling you about upstairs. As you can see, it's not sharp. This is the Grand Commander's scepter. It's what he would carry in to start council sessions. And this case will only be opened in October of this year for a council session. Council sessions every other year in October. This is where the 33 Inspector Generals would meet. There are 33 states in the Southern Jurisdiction, and we are the headquarters of the Southern Jurisdiction of Scottish Rite Masonry. They would meet in here at night. They would discuss legislative and money issues in here. Upstairs is mainly used for rituals. The ceiling actually used to be open. It used to be an open ceiling, but they closed that off because the meetings in here were held at night. There was no point having an open ceiling. And the reason why there's a Bible, a Quran, and a Torah on the altar here is because you don't have to believe in Jesus Christ. You can be any religion, just so long as you believe in God and be a Mason. These are just the holy books our leaders pray to.
The reason why they had the Quran and the Bible and the Pentateuch is because, as he said in his own words, you don't have to believe in Jesus Christ. You just have to believe in the idea that there is a God. And that is because Freemasonry is very much an ecumenical movement. It brings together all kinds of religions because you have to be open to the concept of there being a God. They refer to the God as the grand architect of the universe. That way it can encompass everyone on earth, and there can be members of the Brotherhood from the Muslim world, members of the Brotherhood from the Christian world, all over the world, bringing them all together.
So if you donate $1 million or more, you get your name on a plaque here, and you get a picture downstairs. We do have some plaques that open here, so if you all have $1 million just lying around, we accept checks, cash, credit cards. The Bush family and the Studebaker family are up there, although neither George Bush Sr. nor Jr. was a Mason. The light well in the back there was put in 1993. There are 33 beams of light, and Fiat Lux is Latin for let there be light, and Ordo ab Chao is order from chaos.
What is the significance of the Order ab Chao?
It's like a Masonic motto almost. So when you join Masonry, they say your life is in chaos, like you're not orderly. Mm-hmm. But the further up you go in Masonry, the more order you gain, the more enlightenment you gain. 14 U.S. presidents were Masons, but the last one was Ford. Bill Clinton was a DeMolay, which is a junior Mason. He never became a full Mason.
I remember reading online that this building is based off of a Roman
It's Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. It's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Okay.
It's the tomb of the emperor, the king Halicarnassus. And on either side of our pillars of charity are our crypts. So Mr. Pike is buried 6 feet behind here, and Mr. Cowles is buried 6 feet behind there. Mr. Pike was moved here in 1944. We were fighting World War II at the time, so there was no mayor of Washington, D.C. So we had to ask the U.S. Congress if we could move his body across state lines. So it took an act of Congress to bring Mr. Pike here. Mr. Cowles lived in this building. He was our Grand Commander in the first half of the century. He lived in this building, he died in this building, and he wanted to be buried here. I've been told that these 2 men roam the halls as ghosts. I've not seen that, but if you do see them, let me know.
Albert Pike is a main component of this building. We were shown statues of Pike. We were shown where his body is entombed inside of here. And Albert Pike is also the one who wrote Morals and Dogma. And he very openly talks about who the true God of Freemasonry is. And in Morals and Dogma, he mentions that when you look to the light, as they told us over and over again, Masonry is about finding the light. And Albert Pike, which he clearly is highly revered, tells us in his book, Morals and Dogma, that the light bearer is Lucifer.
So this room houses our Albert Pike collection. Not only was Albert Pike our Grand Commander from 1859 till 1891 when he died in office, he was also a well-known teacher, lawyer, explorer, and Confederate general. He fought for the South during the Civil War because he thought the South would treat the Native Americans better. He was born in Massachusetts, but he did not fight for the North. All the books you see in this room are from his personal library, and he wrote about half of them. So this room is our banquet hall. This room holds 400 people, and we mostly rent it out for charity events, speakers, dinners, that sort of thing. But there's no alcohol allowed in this building, so no casino events or weddings are held here. Most Masonic lodges do not allow alcohol except for Shriners lodges, which is Shriners is another set of Masons. These two paintings here are Masonic paintings, painted by brother John Melius in the 70s. This painting is of George Washington laying the cornerstone to our Capitol. This is significant because he's wearing his full Masonic ritual regalia. He's got his square and compass, he's got his apron, he's got his gavel. And the three men to the right of him here are holding corn, oil, and wine, which are Old Testament gifts of prosperity, and they were leaders of lodges from around here. Now that cornerstone has been lost to history. People have tried looking for it and they cannot find it. They buried cornerstones under the ground. People have told me that that cornerstone has some Masonic writing on it. Whether that's some lost legend or a mystery on it, I don't know, but we cannot find it. This painting is of George Washington taking the oath of office as our first president. This is in New York because New York was the capital at the time. And the reason why this painting is so significant is because the man in blue holding the Bible is a Mason, and he's holding a Masonic Bible. That is the Bible that has been used by basically every president since George Washington. Although Barack Obama did not use that Bible, he used Abraham Lincoln's personal Bible. That Bible has still been used by basically every president.
What's the difference between a Masonic Bible versus...
Masonic Bible has Masonic inscriptions in it. It's still a King James Bible. It just has Masonic inscriptions, and they use it for rituals. So this hallway contains paintings of each degree's regalia. So these plaques here say which degree you are. So the 22nd degree is the Knight Royal Axe, Prince of Libanus. And this text here is the lesson that you learned at that degree. Y'all can feel free to take a look at each one of the degrees. Take your time. This room is dedicated to Masonic Philanthropy. Masons give on average $2 million a day back to the community. That ranges from scholarships to funding hospitals, to paying to homeless shelters, that sort of thing. Masons do a lot. It's just not something people know about.
Is the philanthropy public, or do you mean they don't know about it?
It's public. It's just people don't pay attention to it, or people have certain assumed things about Masonry, like they think it's a cult or something like that. They choose to ignore this sort of thing. This room in here contains international books, so minutes or notes from lodges around the world, they get sent to us and we categorize them. Other famous Masons include Gene Autry, Audie Murphy, Douglas MacArthur, Brad Paisley, Arnold Palmer, J. Edgar Hoover. There have been many famous people that have been Masons. We call this room our Americanism Museum. It's dedicated to famous Americans who have been Masons. Some highlights include a portrait of George Washington that you see there. We have the 33rd copy. We also have a replica flag of the Masonic flag that was put on the moon.
The Masonic flag was put on the moon?
Yep, Buzz Aldrin was a Mason. He put a Masonic flag on the moon.
So he left one just like it?
Yeah, a larger version of it. They brought 14 flags to the moon and only took a couple back.
I've only ever seen pictures of the American flag.
Stuff you don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Cat in the Hat was a Freemason. Was Dr. Seuss a Mason?
No, he was not. This is just for kids.
Oh, okay.
We were allowed into the library of Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, where it's probably one of the largest collection of Freemasonic books inside. I don't know what else to say. I'm rather blown away, and it was quite the experience. I could almost feel the creepy, evil energy coming off of this place just from being inside.